Challenge accepted. Ah yes, we've got a prize fight on our hands.
Now we're talking.
Greetings gamers and hello horror fans. I am your control freak Inkarnate, welcoming you to another chapter of A Tale of Two series. A segment of my channel dedicated to comparing and contrasting franchises of fear fiction and genre adjacent, sizing up the competition, juxtaposing their strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately declaring a winner. This time around, I think you'll enjoy the matchup I've served up for you on the chopping block. What you may have already guessed from the thumbnail and video title is that I'm stacking up the upcoming installments of the Gears of War and Doom franchises.
A titan against a titan!
What you may not know is that this is the first gaming edition of this tale of the tape, and do I have a doozy for you. One playthrough of each gaming title and it's plain to see their common threads. The Doom games and Gears of War equally deal with copious amounts of gore, monstrous enemies, and chainsaws aplenty. You could say that excessive violence is the name of the game, but I already beat you to the punch. I said it, it's my pun. There's no exaggeration in stating that these two series are illustrious IPs within the shooter genre, individually highly influential to gaming and gunplay. Doom for its action, violence, and multiplayer, helping to establish the FPS as we know it. Gears of War for perfecting the over-the-shoulder third-person perspective, pioneering the tactical cover system, and popularizing co-op wave-based combat through Horde mode. With these impactful gaming mechanics having paved the way to define and then redefine action shooters, I think you'll agree that for this head-to-head competition, I'm packing plenty of heat with these heavy hitters. Therefore, the time has come to grip and rip, rip and tear. So let her rip. I can't be the only one that noticed that these addictively gratuitous games made the curious and coincidental decision for their next entries to both go down the prequel route. For Gears of War, it means a homecoming to before Chapter 1. For the Doom games, it spells an origin story for both series and Slayer alike. However, in order to get the most boom out of our buck of what we're dealing with and how we got here, I think it's important that before we go prequel, we must first take 2 steps previous. While Doom has spent its last 2 games rejuvenating what had been a decade-dormant franchise and establishing their own style and signature brand, it's with a heavy heart that I convey that this is not the case with Gears of War. I take no pleasure in admitting that Gears of War has spent its last 2 sequels not just utterly dismantling the lore of the first 3 games, but undoing the goodwill of the original trilogy. Gears 4 and 5 did so much damage to the brand that they relegated the series protagonist Marcus and heir apparent James Phoenix to second fiddle in favor of obligatory diversity quota girl boss Kate Diaz. They brought the Locust back after the trilogy put them down. The new weapons weren't impressive or impactful. The environmental hazards didn't change up the gunplay or gameplay in interesting ways. The open world experience of Gears of War 5, Gears 5, was unanimously panned. There's robots. Yeah, for all the media spin over how developer The Coalition felt the time was now to tell the story of pre-Gears of War, who in the hell is buying that? You expect us to believe that they pumped the brakes on finishing their second trilogy for the sake of a detour down memory lane. Don't let 2026's looming 20-year birthday fool you. They need to celebrate the 2-decade anniversary, capitalizing on nostalgia, because the last 2 decades have failed to gain traction with the new players, reignite interest of old fans, or pave the way forward for the franchise. Nah. They need to set their sights backwards, back to when these games were actually good, to get this series back on track. Doom seemingly did the unthinkable, and Arkham Asylum, their IP, to actually recapture what fans adored about the franchise, and from there it was off to the races. Doom Eternal managed to continue the trend, carry the torch, and solidify that the series was truly back from the dead. While Doom was doling out banger after banger,
banger after banger after banger,
Gears had been churning out blunder after blunder,
burger after burger after burger.
For Doom, it's business as usual, capitalizing on their own momentum to change up the formula for success. For Gears, it's a destination towards familiar territory to undo the recent recipes for disaster. Doom is building on the trail it has blazed. Gears has set its sights on offsetting its string of misfires. Look, E-Day, I'm rooting for you, but Gears of War have driven the franchise into a corner and painted a rather unsightly target on their back. As far as enemies go, I like the Locusts, but Doom's got you beat. Since, generally speaking, the Locusts are a single species, plus the Beasts of Burden, you'll naturally get more variety in the minions that hell belches forward to stand against you. Mind you, as far as Doom, that's been the case for the last 2, but you can bet your boots that they're dialing that up to 11 for this 3rd iteration, especially after the Cosmic Realm reveal with Lovecraftian villains. On the gear side, shout out to the Brumox, Berserkers, Corpsers, and Nemesists. My Doom personal favorites include Arachnotron, Cacodemon, Hell Knight, and Revenant. There are far too many enemy types, bosses, and preferred choices from both franchises to name. Also, let's be honest, in order to do both series justice, that would demand entire separate videos dedicated to each, which is not the point of this episode. As much of a mark that I am for a compelling plot in games, I mean, hell, I'm a fan of Clive Barker's Jericho, and I will defend that game to the death, either mine or preferably yours. I gotta go with Razor Fist when I say Doom works best without a plot.
Literally, folks, all you have to do is dress a football player in a Doom guy suit, hand him a gun the size of a water heater, and jolly him out to shoot the that CGI Hellbeast, bitch. That's literally it. This isn't hard.
Don't get me wrong, I like the simple setup of the Doom franchise. The premise worked 32 years ago in its inception, and god damn it, it works today. While its genius is in its simplicity, its creativity lies in its execution, pun intended, from glory kills to enemy dismemberment. While I appreciate the attempt to craft a narrative and thus a lore with the 2016 game and Doom Eternal, it did feel a bit convoluted and distracting at times. Just make with the shooties and I'll be a happy little slayer. Apart from said shooties and the baddies... No, not them baddies. Apart from that, what really draws me in about this latest Doom trilogy is the settings. The cities converted into hellscapes, or as I call them, downtown Los Angeles, the jumbo jet wearing a skyscraper like a hoodie, an Arctic fortress, a Martian outpost. These environments are heavily detailed and iconic. Each map depicts new challenges for us Doomslayers to traverse and explore as they battle ever-increasing and lethal hordes of hellish legions. I like that in Doom Eternal you would have medieval depictions of the Inferno, giving a Warhammer 40k aesthetic. Even the Fortress of Doom looks like a castle from the Middle Ages. On the other hand, the hook for me with Gears is the plot. The concept of Gears of War sees humanity on the brink of extinction, fighting a losing battle against a dreadfully cold-blooded species bent on world domination at the expense of mankind's annihilation. Civilization has collapsed, cities are ruined, hope is dwindling. The war-torn planet of Sera bears the scars of this conflict every bit as much as the remnant human souls still clinging to the possibility of victory. You play as co-captains Marcus Phoenix and Dominic Santiago, in command of Delta 1 Infantry Squad. You go on missions, gather recon, and take the fight against a horde of locusts whose masses and minions are the stuff of nightmares. We've seen the ravages of the Locust War in the original trilogy, so I for one think it was an inspired choice to go back to Zero Hour, the rise of the enemy, the dawn of war, Emergence Day. Fans both new and old will now bear witness to the events when the nefarious malevolence bubbling beneath the surface of Sera erupted planet-side to enact genocide and lay waste to 25% of the world's population in just their opening salvo. With so many horrors exploding forth upon the unsuspecting masses, all the planet's deep, dark secrets laid bare, and with so many abominable terrors unknown to human eyes, I for one am eager to see how familiar faces must confront and battle against the overwhelming odds of an enemy that, at this point in time, was so crushingly unfamiliar to them. It's not a race against the clock to win the war. These are the opening days of what will become the war. Endurance is your objective, survival is your mission. Talk about a styles clash. On the one hand, you have the destroyed beauty art style of Gears of War. And in this corner, the outlandish, over-the-top, absurdist approach of Doom. While armaments, enemies, and the previously mentioned settings and story would take precedent in the personal taste of many a gamer, and admittedly my own, in deciding their favorites between these two heavyweights, it's this difference in the look, feel, and mood that I find most captivating. Take note of how the gray washout aesthetic native to hyper-realistic shooter games of the 7th gen console was epitomized in the first Gears of War. Now, contrast this with the much more vibrant and sensational visuals of 2016's Doom game that not only served as a much-needed bright spot for the 8th generation of home gaming, but with the resurrection of its franchise, kicked off a slew of horror remakes that we're enjoying to this day. Kind of ironic, isn't it, that of these two series, that the franchise about hell itself would be the one with more color to it, both in terms of graphics and levity. While this particular matchup is more a case of personal preference, I'll give the slight edge to Doom. Its excessively violent and flagrant depictions of brutality add to its charm, entertainment factor, and serve as a signature staple bleeding into every facet of the series. Gears is the very definition of grim and gritty. While it leans much darker, depicting a bleak spirit of a world gone mad, prioritizing visceral horror, seriously, replay the first Gears and tell me it doesn't keep you on edge. Doom is the quintessential pure power fantasy. Sorry, Doom 3. You'll delight in the disfigurement of enemies, rejoice as you gun down mini-bosses into meat hunks and blood sponges, and slaughter abominations in inventive and borderline comedic fashion. Whereas Gears is at its best when you're being overrun by swarms of enemies, hence the locusts, peak Doom is when you bring the fight to the mob of Hellions as a one-man army. Think of Gears of War as 1987's Predator, while Doom sticks close to the film that inspired it, Evil Dead.
You got that?
Gears of War E-Day will see innovations in the form of destructible environments, a return to low lighting and tight corridors, distant screams and falling debris. Limited ammo and fight or flight scenarios will serve to increase the tension. What we're in for is expansive open-level missions, apart from the street-level warfare, rooftop navigation, and underground tunnels. Verticality is heavily suggested as a game mechanic innovation from the trailer. Will multipath exploration lead to branching storylines? Then of course, there is multiplayer, and if it's Gears, you know what that means. Horde mode. That's what it means, Horde mode. Dynamic evolving maps would affect both cover and movement around the map. As far as Doom the Dark Ages, well, let's get the obvious out of the way and get right to the rip. While Doom Eternal had the Crucible sword turning the Slayer into a damn Jedi, the melee weapons in Dark Ages are suitably medieval, but of course, with a Doom twist. From the developer direct, the description being touted was, whereas Doom Eternal saw you as a fighter jet, the Dark Ages will see you as a tank. You've got a flail, a spiked mace, an electrified gauntlet, and, get this, a shield saw. Captain America, hold my beer.
You've got to do better. You've got to step up.
Your challenge has been accepted!
The shield allows you to block, throw, parry, and deflect. Bruh, the Dark Ages ain't playing around here. And mind you, those are just the medieval bladed or blunted arsenal. We ain't even gotten to the legacy heavy artillery, which we'll do right now.
Ooh, guns.
On second thought, I can't do these shooties justice, so let's take a gander at some gameplay. Be still my throbbing boner.
You got that?
Much like the enemies list, the armory of firearms is too long to get into to give them their just due, but rest assured, all the classic Doom guns will return for the Dark Ages. The Skull Crusher is such a work of brutal art, you're almost left wondering why it took 2 games to get it. One of your guns, the Reaver shot, even fires a
Cannonball!
You get to pilot your own mech.
A titan against a titan!
Holy crap, is that a cyber dragon? That certainly gives the Gears of War Reavers a run for their money. Well, developer idsoft has called this a summer blockbuster, and who am I to disagree? As much as I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the word on the street, I also have to mention an advisory that the following are just rumors, so be sure to take them with a pound of salt. You've been warned. According to several fans, from the E-Day trailer, there are signs of UNSC and UAC logos in the preview. If you haven't guessed it, this is meant to suggest that Gears of War is set to have crossover content of some kind with Halo and Doom. Now, on the one hand, this sounds utterly preposterous. Amazing, but preposterous. Firstly, I just feel like these are 3 individually legendary franchises and thus too big to get along. Furthermore, Halo doesn't even have the same gory tone as the other 2. That being said, I do distinctly recall Lost Planet getting a Gears of War crossover. Now, the reason this could happen is that, apart from Doom, the other 2 series are in a bit of a pickle, considering what their successor studios have done to their brands. Seriously, if you think the Coalition have botched Gears 4 and 5, you should see what 343 Industries have been doing to Halo. Or maybe you shouldn't. A collaboration of this kind would be colossal, but much like I warned you when Callisto Protocol was touted as the new Dead Space, for God's sake, temper your expectations. In terms of multiplayer, Gears of War E-Day is said to support PvPvE. Players will face both enemy players and AI locusts. Now, that's something to look forward to. While the prequels of the 7th gen played it safe to close out that console lifecycle, I'm talking the likes of God of War Ascension, Batman Arkham Origins, Halo Reach, and yes, even Gears of War Judgment, E-Day and the Dark Ages look like full-on sequels for the 9th generation platforms. With their development of AAA treatment, they truly have the feel of all new additions to their respective franchises. However, it's my duty to warn of past omens. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but not even a remake of a beloved game is a guaranteed success. For every Silent Hill 2 remake, there's a Dead Space remake. For every The Thing remaster, there's an Alone in the Dark remake. System Shock versus RE4. You see where I'm going. I realize that both games are set to release a year and a half from each other, but given their prequel status, high profile, and violent nature, I felt a deathmatch was in order. Since you can't go wrong with either prequel, gear up boys because it's time to fight like hell. I've been your control freak Inkarnate, and at this stage of the game,
Football player, doom suit, big f***ing gun!
You're playing into my hands. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Come play with us. Forever and ever. Are you talking about the monsters?